Today I'd like to read to you from a story I wrote this past Christmas entitled The Refugees. Part 1. Boy! I heard him call again. Boy, come here! It wasn't my real name. It certainly wasn't the name I go by now, the name I imagined for myself. But at the time, I suppose, it was the only name that I knew. It was the name the old man called me from the moment my father brokered the deal that landed me in the old man's charge. Come to think of it, it was the only name that my father had ever called me. Boy. Boy, come quickly, I need you. The call from within came again, urgently, putting a spring in my step as I rushed to find him. It wasn't a bad situation. Not in those days. It held much better prospects for me, at least. The fifth son of 7, which is why I don't blame either of them for just calling me boy, like something out of an old Tarzan movie. My father, who had expended all his joy, his pride, on the older 2 sons, Jesse and Josiah, had little time to devote to those of us who were younger. The older boys would take over the family business. The next 2 sons, they may have had proper names, who remembers, found places with our uncle's farming interests. For me, there was no place, no relatives to take me in. No place, that is, until Father happened to overnight at the old man's hostel one stormy night. The old man found a listening ear in my father, so he began to complain as to how there was no child for him to leave his business to. He and his wife had no children since a tragedy some 20 years earlier had caused her to lose their only child in birth. Such an accident it had been, too, to render her unable to bear any more children from that point on. That night my father struck a deal with the old man, a sort of apprenticeship. Unlike most such jobs, we did not have to buy in with anything. What my father contributed to the agreement was me. What the old man got was free labor at the cost of a room and board for one who became little more than slave labor. I can't complain, though. If you can believe it, life actually improved for me. I no longer had to suffer the rants of older family members. I no longer had to share my food with competitive and growing siblings. I no longer had to bed down on the floor in an anteroom. And now I had prospects for a future, if I was willing to learn under the hard tutelage of the old man. And if all worked out as planned, I would inherit a sustainable business in the end. As for my father, he reduced the number of mouths he had to feed. Of course, the old man tried to act gruff. He called me boy, I believe, to hold the memory of his long-lost son at bay. But still, when he thought I wasn't watching, I could just see a glimmer of pride on his face. Pride that the end would not collapse when he could no longer run it, nor would it fall victim to the big conglomerates that were swallowing up the hotel business everywhere, either buying out or rolling over small enterprises like his, with regard only for the magnificent profits to be had in big impersonal business. He kept up his dour face by giving me the most menial of jobs around the place. In exchange, he provided a dry bed and ample food as long as my chores were done and the customers were happy. I kept their rooms clean, their water and lights in working order, and made sure their sheets and towels were crisp and clean daily. "Boy!" he called again as I rushed into the kitchen, where he was hovering over the ancient uh, oven with a flashlight. "We've got to get this thing in proper working order for the weekend," the old man was grumbling. "The town festival will bring booming business for those of us who are prepared." Was that a twinkle I saw pass through his eye? We spent the better part of the afternoon cleaning and repairing the clunky old appliance, making it just like, no, better than new. And true to his imagination, we were ready for the onslaught of the weekend.